myself. Just kidding. Fudge. Well, there is. Let's get something straight, people. As I adjust, as, as I adjust certain things here. We have in the truther community quite a bugger thing of events. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I first have to close my door. And number two, there's also some infighting within the truther community that I believe that we should get addressed. They're all they are all trying to blame it on a certain religion, when it's more than likely than not a certain let's say people who hold a certain political view. And I would say it's one of the community, and we are gonna get onto this show right here. Show. Hopefully, we have our beautiful special guest Celeste. But let's dig right into what we're talking about here. Two, 1, 2, 3. Now, understand that this is exactly why they are taking a lot of beliefs and making sure that you trust the science. The science. And I'm not saying science isn't real, okay? But let's not kid ourselves. Let's not joke ourselves how it's all basically, it depends on who's funding it, right? It's all money based. And I understand in a perfect world you wouldn't want this something like that to you would want it to be more than that. But let's check out and see what we got here.
Love the thrill of hitting it big? How about the chance to win 1 Bitcoin with just
Tether, global leader in financial inclusion, connecting people, communities.
Yaron Brook, an intellectual, author, speaker, and for reasons that defy me, seems to be growing in popularity.
Yeah. You know who you should have on to talk about this, and I think people have looped you in before, is Yaron Brook from Ayn Rand Institute.
Can you hear all that, chat? Okay. We got so that's gonna come on in a second now. Okay.
Dude,
But Yaron Brook is an idiot, and I'm going to show you why. He has a video that actually argues atheism did not lead to communism. So let's see what Yaron Brook has to say on the topic.
Atheism did not lead to communism.
That's a very bold statement.
Wait, what did I miss? Hi.
Not you just missed the introduction. That's
Okay.
no, you didn't miss anything. But we can start from the top of how.
Oh, no, that's okay. You can just give me the lowdown.
The lowdown was just I basically introduced how there's a segment of the truther community that is blaming a certain religion, but
yeah,
I'm trying to sit
or religion, yeah, ethnic group or
yeah, but a certain group of people, but no one is talking about how it's really not them, and it's also how they're how it's Reds, how it's commies. You're preaching this kind of stuff, but and again, I'm not saying that the truther community isn't but I mean, like, but this is what really confuses me. The parts of the truther community really confuse me, and because in one sense they want to align themselves and say that they have the blood of Christ, but at the others, but then in the other side, yeah. Some of them want to say that they want to proclaim, "Hey, I have these chromosomes, or I not these chromosomes." Well, yeah, I have this DNA chain. I have this other, and it's the same thing. I have this blood type, and it's
grab the letter M on my palm, so I am one of the ascended, or yeah, I'm an ascended master, or I'm one of the 144, or I'm one of the legions of angels descended from Archangel Michael. And a lot of them did not bother to look up that who else has a letter M. Hillary Clinton, just to name a few. Hillary Clinton. I can't verify that Angela Merkel does, because I have not seen her palms, but according to internet searches, it turns out she does. But Obama does have, and it's a very clear M. Diddy does. And
wow.
So and Bill Gates does too. So, I doubt that they come from that, or if they did, they are definitely fallen angels. I don't know what that means, but it's just, and I'm not saying it's not special, because it turns out that Donald Trump does too. And depending on what news you watch, you either like him or you don't. So I like him, though I think he's good, but everyone has their own opinion about that, and they have some strong ones apparently. So whatever. But then, and also Michael Jackson, Prince, basically what I'm getting is basically it's people who have charisma and are in the public eye. But, I'm not saying it's not significant, and I'm not saying it's not rare, but I've come to the conclusion that maybe those who have this letter on their palm, they may have been born with special gifts, but we know that a lot of people could have amazing gifts and talents and abuse them. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yaron Brook, an intellectual, author, speaker, and for reasons that defy me, seems to be growing in popularity.
You know who you should have on to talk about this, and I think people have looped you in before, is Yaron Brook from Ayn Rand Institute.
But Yaron Brook is an idiot, and I'm going to show you why. He has a video that actually argues atheism did not lead to communism. So let's see what Yaron Brook has to say on the topic.
Atheism did not lead to communism. The communists were the furthest thing from atheists.
Okay, I gotta stop it there. The communists were the furthest thing from atheists? The Soviet Union was the first state to have as an ideological objective the elimination of religion. Toward that end, the communist regime confiscated church property, ridiculed religion, harassed believers, and propagated atheism in the schools.
What does that sound like today?
The left.
Absolutely, that's what they're thrusting in the schools, the school system, not the old school left, not the old school left, the modern left.
Over the course of nearly half a century, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union has endeavored to undermine the religious ties and inclinations of its citizens. Repressive actions against church officials.
That wasn't real communism. That was capitalism. Capitalism destroyed what communism was trying to start.
Wow.
Whoever fucking preaches that shit, because I remember someone who Celeste and I were associates, associates with a couple of years ago, said basically exactly that. Don't you remember what he was saying?
Oh, yeah, I know. And the thing is that no matter how much you try to explain the patterns throughout history around communism, they just don't get it. But they're just staunch. It's very much, oh, it's the capitalists that ruined it. And it's like, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's not the fact that none of this is fucking sustainable. And it's been it's just these people don't know how money, not just how money, but how just shit works. I'm sorry.
The introduction of laws limiting church power and religious proselytism and the dissemination of atheist propaganda have all been aimed at diminishing the scope and relevance of religion in the USSR, also noting that anti-religious propaganda was abundant to create an atheist society.
This is the dangerous thing. I love how speaking of how they say you should question everything, question all that stuff, but don't question science. Don't question that, but question everything else.
Yeah.
I question your fucking logic of thinking. That's part of it.
Atheists waged a 70-year war on religious belief in the Soviet Union. The Communist Party destroyed churches, mosques, and temples. It executed religious leaders, flooded the schools and media with anti-religious propaganda, and introduced a belief system called scientific atheism. The systematic state-sponsored attempt to eliminate religion,
trust the science.
Atheism is not merely incidental or marginal to communist policy. It is not a side effect, but the central pivot. Lenin compared religion to a venereal disease. All references to religion from school curriculums were removed. Christian intellectuals were rounded up and sent to camps. The Soviet government generously financed atheists while brutally suppressing religious advocates. For this reason, scientific atheism should be considered the equivalent of a religious monopoly. Anti-religious propaganda infiltrated the most basic lessons in unrelated topics.
I love it. So these anti-religious atheist things, this is not a belief system. Oh, well, it's the lack of a higher power. Well, then why do you enforce it as if it is a religion? This is why I say atheism is not a religion. Well, I don't say that. I say it is a religion. It's because they say, we don't believe in a higher power. You don't. I guess in a spirit, you don't believe in a higher spiritual entity, but don't tell me that you don't believe in a higher power. Because you motherfuckers, straight from the horse's mouths, you commies and you socialists say it's the government's responsibility to take care of me. The government knows what's best. The government is this, that, and the third. Oh, these millionaires and billionaires, they know more than I do. They're more successful than me, so ergo they're smarter than I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's in what's it, that's consensual oppression. They are talking down upon themselves. Oh, I could never succeed because of these reasons. That's another part of communism.
Mm-hmm.
Soviet educational system held the bringing up of children.
Yeah, it's to make sure you want to know what it is. It's because communism needs everybody to be a fucking loser to be successful, but then, and they can't have anyone succeed or be better. But biology, real science, actually shows that everyone is we just want to we want to evolve, we want to be better. It is about sticking out
in the atheist spirit as one of its primary visions. But propaganda was mentioned several times, so before we continue the video, I just want to take a quick look at some of the propaganda and see if it gives us any insights into the communist agenda. This one from 1931, a drawing of an emaciated worker looking at a cannon, on top of which is an open Bible with a character of Jesus looking over it and the Pope pointing at the Bible. This one from The Godless, which was an atheist publication funded by Communist Party members, shows workers throwing Christ out of a wheelbarrow. This one has two images. On the left, smokestacks of a factory are plugged up by Christ and clergy. On the right is a working factory with a worker reading The Godless, or The Atheist, the publication I mentioned earlier. Here's another one which reads, "The struggle against religion is the struggle for socialism." This one here calling for women to break religious bonds and build socialism, as she rips off the cross from her neck and heads towards the factories. Here's another one where a person seems to be entering some sort of bird catcher with religious figures trying to catch him. Here's another one which reads, "Use the correspondence pen in the light of science to expose sectarian tricks." Here's another with religious figures on puppet strings urging Soviets to get rid of the religious drug. Here's another one with the anti-religious character showing priests preaching to a congregation of sheep and goats. Here's another one from 1931, a drawing of a Red Army soldier walking and carrying two books under his arm, one marked Lenin and the other marked Technology, and he is spearing this tiny person here labeled God. Here's one from 1931, an airplane with the word atheist painted on it, with a Red Army pilot and soldier dropping atheist publications over the city below. Remember, Yaron Brooks's communists were the furthest thing from atheists. Here's a caricature showing a fat guy manipulating religious symbols in front of a peasant. This one from the 1920s, a Bolshevist woman liberated from domestic slavery and the prejudices of religion. Here's one of a church with two priests on the roof waving incense burners, and peasants are entering the church with large bags and livestock and exiting with nothing.
Communism is nothing but a propaganda. Not nothing but propaganda. How in its own right to erase religion? How is this not a religious practice?
Yeah.
Don't give me this fucking bullshit that atheists aren't religious. Of course they are. They're all dogmatic. It's a dogma. You go, they don't. It's like, well, it's not organized. Maybe initially it wasn't, but it has become organized. Yes, communism and atheism. Actually, no, that's true. Communism is organized atheism, if you want to get down to that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to hear that you fuckers are.
They want to strip you of your divinity and your connection to God because the government is your God. The government is your is the one you answer to, the one you're enslaved to. They just want you to be a slave, a mindless worker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they cry, bitch, and moan. Oh my God, sis! Capitalists, the big people are not giving me a living wage. It's like, because no, I mean, no. That is a factor, but the fact that you're also participating in stupid bullshit like this and not trying to better yourself and always looking to the government for a bigger answer and saying, but because you don't believe in a higher spirit, I mean, good Lord.
Here's another one with a boy bearing a banner extolling world atheism stocks all over the globe. Here's another from 1930, a caricature of a capitalist holding a Bible as he sits on top of prisoners. Here's another from the early 30s.
Do capitalists have private jails and private prisons? Yes. Is that awful? That's to be determined. But what would you rather be? Would you rather be enslaved and you know you're a slave, so there's something that you can possibly bail out of, like you sacrifice your life and you fawn for your freedom, or is it better to become an atheist / communist who's enslaved, who becomes basically a consensual indentured servant and sees it as good? Like, being a slave is good. I'm doing it for the betterment of the government. I'm doing it the betterment for this, as I can barely feed myself, and I have to starve and force starve other nations. I'm still in good hands, in spite of me having no fucking say in what happens to my life. God.
That's living hell. That sounds like a living hell to me. Who would want that? Who in their right mind would want that? But the problem is that communism is being presented as if it's some kind of utopia. Like, oh, you get free housing, you get, you get free this and free health care, free, anything you need is provided to you, and you don't have to, because capitalism only favors the rich and the poor are left behind. And if you need food, it's provided to you. So it sounds like a great thing on paper, but
Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
You have to understand that, and people need to understand.
Equal. No one's rich and no one's poor. Like, we're all happy and we're all
Okay.
kumbaya culture. And yeah, it sounds pretty good on the surface. I mean, it used to sound like a good thing to me. I mean, when I was in college, like, I remember our professors, talking about, like, how Marxism was this great thing. And, they made it sound very utopic, where we questioned, and we thought we were living in a dystopia, and, and a lot of us never been anywhere and, seen or experienced what it's like in other countries or to live in one. But so we didn't know, we just thought, oh, everything here is so horrible and our society sucks. And of course, everyone felt bad about themselves because, oh, we're just, if you're white, you're a colonizer. You got this country by colonizing and stealing and, having slaves. And of course, how could you feel good about yourself when you reflect on that or think that that's your history and that's the only reason why your country is,
Well, yeah, that's they do that through shaming.
Mhm.
And because when you and that is a way to,
because I felt like shit when I was in my late high school years or college, like, I should have been one of the happiest people in the world, because I lived in a beautiful place. I lived in Capitola Village, Northern California. It's part of Santa Cruz. Like, that's hell on earth to a lot of people, and I was miserable. I wasn't really miserable. I mean, I did enjoy the things that were around me, but I felt horrible inside. I felt icky inside. I felt bad all the time. And it was because of all this propaganda being spewed then, by, the middle-aged boomers at the time that, were preaching this shit, around there, and
I honestly think that it was being taught to the especially to the youth, to as a factor to factor into their own demise.
maybe
I honestly think that boomers actually did want to sabotage the younger ones.
yeah, whether they did it consciously or unconsciously is debatable, but
Some of it was conscious, some of them are conscious, because you can tell like the disgust. I mean, even to this
they
day,
were resentful. I remember, no, I think you might be onto something, because like the boomer women, and maybe it happens to a lot of women in middle age, they get insecure because they realize, okay, I don't look as good as I did, and they see all these pretty girls in their 20s and late teens, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not that anymore, and no one wants me anymore. And especially if they're single, and they, I could see where it was a fearful time. And plus, people age but different than they do now. Not that we're not aging, but we are aging differently, I notice. But back then a 40-year-old looked, well, like they were 40,
yeah.
versus now. So it so I think there was a bit of resentment, because I remember it. I remember being the 16-year-old high school, like going into this one mercantile in Capitola Village, and they had this tester makeup session, and I was like testing different makeups, and there's this one woman behind the counter, and she was going off on me, like, how she realized that beauty is in her heart, and meaning that I was being vain and shallow. And I just remember walking out of there with tears. I was bawling with tears in
Damn.
my eyes, and I just felt she made me feel horrible.
No,
And
I
yeah,
gotta say, the some of the worst shit that I got from the I get the most shit even as a kid when I was young, and that like the most shit I got from was boomer women.
yep.
I got them for no reason, for no fucking reason. You want to talk about see you next Tuesdays? That is like a freaking. I'm gonna all right. I'm actually gonna outright say it. Cons. You want to talk about a fucking a group of people? That is the boomer females. I
Mhm.
get even when I was 12, even as a 12-year-old boy in the 2000s, and an ex-friend of mine's mom, his mom is a boomer, gave me, I was the scapegoat for everything that went wrong to him. Even
Wow.
when I wasn't even part of his life, she still blamed it on me. No, boomer women are fucking twats.
Well, it's just weird that you would
And
think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I gotta say it's because they did have it they did have it all in the the olden days, and then and they were also the last generation to actually own something. You can actually afford a house. They were the last ones to comfortably afford a house and have a job and do it on all under one wage. And then now the '08 housing crisis hit, and then
It fucked Xers over. It really did.
it fucked everyone besides boomers and older.
Mm-hmm. And millennials, yeah.
Yeah.
And boomers, you know, it's like I feel sad for them because I mean they're going to college and stuff, and you know they want to look forward to a bright future, you know, and have a family and have that American dream. But you know, it's heartbreaking to think that you know what
Well, boomers are pushing this shit. They are put the most pushing the fucking communist shit here.
Yeah.
They're pushing that communist agenda. Fucking Marianne Williamson is, all this communism, socialism. It's like all these boomers who have millions of dollars in their fucking accounts don't want them to have don't want the future to be bright. They are the biggest communist advocates. And
yeah, and they had the American dream. They were the last generation where the American dream was attainable as long as you worked hard, and it didn't even, it could be a blue collar job. It didn't even have to be like a professor or science or science.
A STEM field.
Yeah, you could be a teacher, you could be a freaking factory worker. I mean, maybe you weren't rich, but
coal miner,
probably, you know, at least below mid class, which meant that you still had
you still could pay you could still pay for like
house, you know, you could still pay for your family, and yeah, you
can seriously pay for like 3 children, 4 kids on one wage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a mortgage on and your mortgage and your car payment and a dog or 2.
Mm-hmm.
You were able to sustain about 6 different lives, yourself included, under one wage.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have these fucking assholes saying, so we should go back to 1950 and we should do this. And they're saying as if it's like a derogatory bad thing. It's like, well, do you want to be 60 something years old with no pension?
Yeah.
You ain't got no pension, girl. You're gonna think you think Social Security and is gonna cover that like $5,000 a month rent you got on your freaking house, or even an apartment or your room, depending on where you live. No, as soon as you can't make that payment, you're fucking homeless, and then your ass is in the fucking homeless shelter.
Yeah.
Then you went from eating like a fast food, you could barely paying your fucking rent, to now just eating Campbell's every day in a freaking homeless shelter. Good job. There's your fucking communist tax everything, tax the rich agenda right there. By making, and you could say that, oh well, those are the corporates and corporations and corporatists to a degree, yes, but who's enabling that? You don't think that you don't think that those same motherfuckers are shaking hands with the said government?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
And this is exactly what Trump is doing. You're trying to clean house, but we all know that these fucking boomers cannot let go of their shit. They want to bitch about monopolies. Meanwhile, they have the whole fucking country monopolized.
Mm-hmm.
An old woman pulling a young girl by her braid and pointing to a church, with an old priest looking out the window here and ringing the bell, because religion is so creepy and awful. Here's another from 1930, a hammer coming down hard on an old Russian calendar with religious symbols and pages flying out of it. And then below is a satirical poem criticizing the old calendar and urging the use of a new one because the old one is based on Jesus. Here's another from 1930, from The Godless, a machine dumping religious figures into a pit. Here's another of a peasant burdened by carrying an icon of a smiling Jesus by a rope with a Russian Orthodox cross hanging from it, and an excerpt from Lenin, Ridicule and Religion. Here's a caricature depicting the figure of Christ leading a crowd of faithful into the open jaws of capitalism. Here's another one of showing a capitalist riding on a cross, being pulled by working men. Another here on the left, I believe it says, by and by the bishops ate. And on the right, it says, the power of the engines, which overcomes the power of the church. Here's another one with two images. On the left, a small priest is ringing the church tower bell with holy icons on display with a sale at decreased prices for the items. And on the right is a young man and girl with a book in hand, dancing couples outside a collective farm club. And at the bottom, I believe it says, in vain the priest waits at the church shop. We live perfectly without icons and God. This one has selected passages from the church teachings about the inferiority of women. Know you're foolish to search for the heavens. Remember, how did you live in the past? The working woman is a comrade. Throw away your belief in priests and God. Here's another one with the
And why would they want to do that? Why? And I want to ask just anybody who ends up watching this. If you're a communist, let me ask you this. Why would you want that for yourself? Do you not understand it's not about getting stoned and lounging around? It's about fucking working your ass off from birth to death.
Mm-hmm.
That's what communism is about. A communism is all about working to death, keeping the machine going. You're an ant, essentially. You want to say, oh, we need to decolonize this, when you yourself, I swear to fucking God, you commies, it's all, you're a colony. Communism is all about having the same mission, not challenging the system. That's a colony, like ants in a colony. So you want to fucking decolonize certain areas while being a colony? Hello? You stupid fucks.
Yeah.
A religious character depicting peasants weighed down with icons, candles, and chains. This one from the 1930s that reads, for the industrial plan for completing a 5-year plan in only 4 against religion. Here's another one depicting God being responsible for all the plagues of the world. Here's another one about destroying the backwards religious traditions of the countryside and spreading scientific learning. And there's a bunch of these stuff. There's a bunch more. I don't know what all of them say, but you get the point. Communists really hated religion, but I wanted to show this first because I thought it was interesting.
They still do. Like crazy.
And Euron is going to make a comparison between religion and communism to try to make them seem the same.
Oh,
so just keep this in mind. But let's let Euron continue.
The communists were the furthest thing from atheists. Atheists in the sense of respecting reality, respecting reason, rejecting faith, rejecting mysticism. The communists were mystics through and through. They were mystics of the collective. They had nothing to do with reason. They were all about emotion and faith. Communism is not an atheistic in the sense, again, of secular, which is in a sense reality-oriented. No, they wanted to reject reality for some vision that some collective called the proletarian held in their minds. There's a lot more in common between Christianity and communism than there is between communism and atheism. Atheism, again, is understood as reality orientation, as fact-based, as reason-based.
Okay, so he says a couple things here. He finishes with saying atheism is understood as fact-based and reason-based. Atheism is not any of those things, despite him saying so, but this is something he does a lot, and you'll see this recurring. No,
I'm not saying that atheism. I see what he's trying to say, how atheism is more, three-dimensional science, 3D science based, which is true. He's not wrong there. but at what expense? They say trust the science, and science, but also don't. I mean, like but you can't challenge it. We all know what happened in 2020, 2019.
Trust the science.
You're questioning me. You're questioning science. Yeah, you should. You should always. You assholes should fucking stick to your guns. Question everything. Well, yeah. If I'm questioning that fucker and I'm questioning science by proxy, yeah, of course I'm gonna question science. Do I question all science? I don't question all science. Well, first of all, no, because some science is just basic fucking common sense. All right, that's it. It's not like, I know this is going to be controversial here, but go fuck yourselves. But just because it looks like an XY does not mean it's not an XX.
Mm-hmm.
You still trust, oh, well, there's some this, that, and the third. Well, what chromosome pairs were you born with? Yeah, exactly. No matter how hard you change the hardware, the software is still the same.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout his arguments is him positioning atheists as the beholders of all reason and religious people being without reason.
Now that sounds really fucking pompous.
So when he says communists had nothing to do with reason, that pretty much disqualifies them from being atheists, because all atheists love reason so much, as opposed to those religious folks who are basically reason.
Atheists love reason, yet are so fucking reasonable, aren't they? Jeez.
This sentiment, however, was also shared very much by the communists, because they were also atheists like Yaron Brook. Scientific atheists believed that their technological and scientific success would obviously disprove the validity of religion, because the two are fundamentally the opposite. Official Soviet ideology stated that religion exists where knowledge is lacking, and religion is opposed to science. In 1932, the Leningrad Academy of Sciences started setting up museums, the first being the Museum of History of Religion and Atheism. In the first 20 years, they set up hundreds of these museums of atheism. The displays were based on the idea that all religions were similar superstitions, which they demonstrated by juxtaposing idols, fetishes, Christian images, and objects of witchcraft.
Oh, so they reject reject objects of witchcraft, but here you've got the DS praising the absolute shit out of you have mainstream you got mainstream artists literally under the guise of their art and their performance, basically touting and flaunting these satanic rituals. I honestly remember going to the Weekend concert, and my mom thought, oh, well, it's just this. It's like, I told my mom, I feel like I'm in hell. This looks like hell. This literally looks like hell. This looks like a fucking satanic ritual.
Wow.
And I am not one of those people. I'm not one of those crazy fuckers who say, oh, well, Led Zeppelin is satanic. Jimi Hendrix is satanic. Anything, anything that's cool is satanic. Stay sterile, stay bland, stay boring. That's being the holiness. I'm not one of those people. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It's just but no, that was hell that I was in. I didn't experience it, but I witnessed it with my eyes, what it looks like, man. They are not scared to portray that stuff. And I honestly do believe you cannot put that is not something that Ewjays would do. They would preach Well, the worst thing is that they would do is bitch how I how much how didn't uh, how I didn't tip them for, but that was just because they were being assholes.
The museums characterized religion, ridiculing and satirizing the Bible. All Soviet museums shared a single clear ideology and mission: the establishment of socialism. One important part of that mission was the drive to destroy religion. Atheist propaganda and the struggle against religion began immediately after the Bolsheviks seized power in 1917.
Are you hearing this, Truther community? Are you hearing this? May I say her name?
No.
Or at least Gila.
Things out. Yeah.
I mean, Gila,
No, Gila,
Light Warrior Network. Are
Jewish.
you? No, I understand.
Very.
I understand. I understand, but anybody who has this freaking anti border, basicay this anti-Semitic.
But that's not Gila. No.
Or okay, maybe not Gila. Okay, I take that back.
No,
so no, I wait.
Against it, defend it vehemently.
But I'm talking about like there are a lot of people in this community who are saying that it is those people who are in control, and it's these people who are in putting hell on earth. No, it's these atheists.
Yeah, well, okay, so I've had some discussions, and I've also heard talks, and it's not only people that I've talked to personally, but even people I've heard online. Like Jason Q is a famous one around the community. He's like unapologetically anti-Semitic, and there's these one twins that I watch, and they're Saudi. I mean, they're American, but their roots are, they have, they're Middle Eastern, Saudi Arabian, and which I have nothing against. That's not my point.
No.
They're very much, kind of on that bandwagon, and who else? Who else? There's people I've spoken to too, and I won't name names just because I don't want to do that to people. But I'm not saying any of these people are necessarily bad people, but again, well, even that one lady, Tara by Janine, she's posted stuff out there that's just like, okay, like she's kind of on that bandwagon too. So, it's, okay, my take on it, because I did my own research, because as I mean, no, I did not grow up, among the religion or among the culture. I've known people here and there, but not that many, and I don't know much about it personally, but like I have a great grandfather who I never met, by the way, who happens to be Jewish, and come from that. So, a part of me, hearing all this stuff, even though I'm mostly an outsider, I'm like, okay, well, I still have some roots there. So what are they saying? But I've had a lot of people who had strong reactions to me, and there's a time when I just didn't even want to bring it up or acknowledge it, because it's like, holy shit, people have very negative reactions to this, and why. And so I looked it up, and I saw this stuff online, like, oh my God, how they're satanic, and the Talmud, and this and that. And, I'm just like, oh my God, like, this is awful. And I felt horrible about it. But and someone recommended that I ought to watch Europa, The Last Battle, and I watched a few of the series, and I just couldn't. I just knew that if I continued to watch this all the way through, that I could feel exactly the way they did. And so I kind of did my own research and looked up various people that I hear of, like Karl Marx, for example. I kind of looked him up, and it's like, okay, well, he does come from a Jewish background, but wait a second. This is something they don't talk about. When he was young, his family converted to Lutheran. And if anything, he was actually against the Jews at the time because of their capitalist ways, because they were capitalists and they were known for their capitalism. And he did not like them for that reason, because he was anti those things and he did not practice Judaism. And it turns out that he himself embraced, declared himself as being an atheist. Like, he didn't, so meaning he didn't even practice Christianity. He did not believe in God at all. And he did not, he just, he said it's opium for, like, it's our opium, our belief in religion and spirituality and all that stuff. And he was anti all that stuff. So there's that. And then George Soros. Okay, well, yes, he is Jewish, but let's explore this. Like, he collaborated with the Nazis in World War II. He seized property from, from the Jews at the time. And he himself, if you ask him what he is, he's atheist. So he's not practicing Judaism, not even Christianity.
But he hides behind that label.
Exactly. Yeah. So, what I'm seeing in common, even that guy Yuri, who is that Charles Schwab's sidekick, he is Israeli, okay, but he himself declares himself as atheist, meaning he doesn't believe in God or any kind of religion, and he's all about science.
Yeah.
And I looked up Charles Schwab's religion. He grew up, I think he's Swiss or something like that. And he grew up, I think, as a Catholic, and I believe, but he himself atheist. So all these people that want to implement communism and they want to take God out. And this is what Stalin did. Like, there's all this talk that Stalin is or was Jewish or part Jewish. Well, no one knows what his father's diaspora or side of the ethnicity was, but his mother was clearly Georgian, and she was Armenian or something like that, I think. But she was not Jewish. In fact, he grew up in a Christian household, and he even studied to be a priest growing up. I mean, that's so, there's no Judaism there, as far as his own culture goes. So he really wasn't, even if he was part per se, like, he was not connected to the culture nor religion. So, and in fact, I was reading up on him. I saw a documentary because I really wanted to know. And I realized he too embraced atheism, and he wanted to remove God out of Russia and the Russian culture and society. So, and same with Lenin, atheist. They all grew up Christian. And Lenin's not Jewish, by the way,
Oh, speaking of, look at you're on it. You're on it. Leninists argued that the party should actively help in eradicate religion as a vital step towards creating new Soviet man. Atheist propaganda and the struggle against religion began immediately after the Bolsheviks seized power in 1917.
Yep. So if anything, it's the motivation behind it is not only power and control over everyone, but atheism. They're all atheists. They want to remove God out of society. Same with China. They removed the CCP, they're anti-God. Kim
Yeah.
Jong, anti-God, Marxists, they're but they want to associate Marxism with Judaism or Zionism, and really
No,
that
no.
that is false. That's a misnomer. I mean,
That is so
even
so
roots are Jewish, it has nothing to do with Jewish culture or Jewish religion. That's what people don't understand, and that's what the truther community is not connecting.
and let me ask you and I want to ask the quote unquote truthers, and also people who come across this video. If you're a truther, like, you're meaning to tell me you didn't start off as, like, let's say maybe you were once upon a time an atheist or a Jew. You're meaning to tell me that you never switched beliefs later on?
Mm-hmm.
I was baptized Christian. I am an omniist right now.
Mm-hmm.
So
Could you explain that, what that means?
omniism is a spiritual belief that all religious beliefs and all practices they're all true in a sense. All There's truth in all
Okay.
of the religions.
Okay, I could be down with that.
So even though I am new age and I lean towards like a hybrid of Christianity and Buddhism, and even some, I'm predominantly an omniist.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. Yeah,
Okay.
but I was a former Christian. I didn't start off like this, and I know
Mhm.
plenty of people who start off as Christians that became atheists.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
There are plenty of those people who went from Christianity to Judaism. My mom went from Greek Orthodox to Buddhism to Taoism to Omni, and now pretty much like an omniist herself.
Mm-hmm.
So just because you start off one way, that doesn't mean that's what you holistically believe. You embrace later on what you holistically believe deep down inside. And these motherfuckers are atheists. They
Mhm.
always were.
Leninists argued that the party should actively help to eradicate religion as a vital step in creating the new Soviet man. And he talks about the
By the way, we are trying to clear the names here because there, like I said in the beginning of the video, there's a lot of gaslighting and fuckery and misinformation, like legit misinformation, thrown out in the truther community. Ironically hilarious at that, about how, as Celeste was saying, that that Judaism is the arbiter of evil, or that's what's causing all the, it's Zionism and shit like that. No, it's atheism, and there's evidence of this.
the communists being mystics like religious people, but they made the same arguments. They said the same things as Iran says. Similarly, scientific atheists thought that atheism was empirically proven because God remained unseen or because certain religious stories were scientifically inconceivable. The president of the League of Militant Atheists explained the past attempts to free humanity of religion failed because they were insufficiently scientific. He promised that the Soviet state could remedy past failures through the promotion of a clearly defined scientific atheism. He predicted that there could be no doubt that the fact that the new state of the USSR, led by the Communist Party with a program permeated by the spirit of militant atheism, gives the reason why this state is
Whoa, 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 whoa.
successfully surmounting the great difficulties that stand in its way. So the Soviets weren't mystics, they were materialists like Yaron Brook. They hated the mysticism of religion, but let's keep going and see what else Yaron has to say.
So in my view, if you just look at morality, Christian morality is, or religious morality broadly, why pick on the Christians? Religious morality generally is based on sacrifice of the individual to God. But it's still sacrifice of the individual to some entity that this individual has no knowledge of, no explicit knowledge of. He can't see it, he can't touch it, he can't feel it, right? But he's expected to sacrifice, to do his commandments, to follow God's wishes.
Kind of sounds like the government.
Yeah.
Now take a communist. You're supposed to sacrifice for what? For a proletarian. Anybody seen a proletarian? Anybody felt a proletarian? There's no such thing as the proletarian. It's just a random characterization of a group of people that don't really actually exist. It's a group. Is there an entity? Is there consciousness that the proletarian has? Who benefits from your sacrifices? Any particular proletarian? Ooh, that's no good. That would be selfish. It has to be the proletarian, the group, the fuzzy collective. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a collective called the proletarian any more than there's such a thing as God.
Okay, he basically says, since God is immaterial and cannot be seen or felt by our senses, that makes it obvious that religion isn't real. This is a terrible comparison. His basic argument is that both religion and communism believe in something immaterial, and they're both not real. That makes them the same. This comparison is so awful because in order for it to function at all, you first have to accept his false, or at the very least unproven premise. Step 1 of the argument is the proletariat is immaterial and God is immaterial. Step 2...
By the way, if for any of you stupid idiots who are fucking going to say, oh, well, that's Trump, Trump is the government, he's ridding these motherfuckers. Predominantly, when I say the government, I mean predominantly it's the Democrats who are pushing for this fuckery.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if the Democrats were on the right track and they were really listening to what the people wanted, there would Trump would not even be he wouldn't be president once in his life. So but whatever, you fuckwits.
The argument is that the proletariat is false and God is false. No, this is a false premise because this comparison only works if you're already an atheist who subscribes to a materialistic worldview. You also have to completely ignore anything and everything the communists ever did or said about religion. For example, if you were trying to make an argument like Trump and Obama are alike, you could start with Obama was president and Trump was president, and Obama issued executive orders, and so has Trump. Okay, those things are objectively true. It doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat to be able to stay with that comparison, at least through these first two steps. But in Yaron's case, his analogy can't even get that far because he requires you to subscribe to his materialistic worldview, because if you don't, his analogy completely falls apart. Not so coincidentally, so were the communists who, like Brooke, prescribed materialism because they were atheists. Stalin even wrote at length about this official Soviet position called dialectical and historical materialism. Dialectical and historical materialism is the world outlook of the Marxist-Leninist Party, but let's continue.
Now I can understand why they think it's that there's a faction of truthers who think that it's the Jewish people now, because Jewish people are materialistic. Not all of them, but they do like their coin.
Yeah, they are. When it comes to their money, they're known to be pretty tight, and I've experienced it personally. Not with everybody, of course, but 9/10 of the time that's true.
Yeah.
But you expect that
will admit, about them and that's something I have frowned on about them and not stoked with, but they are weird when it comes to their coin. And I'm not saying, I'm all about being thrifty. Like, if I could get something for $1 versus $2, it just makes more sense to get it for $1, if it's the same thing, so I get that, but with me, it's like, I don't want, it's one thing if I'm shopping to be thrifty or for a good deal, but when it comes to a small business or, like a mom and pop shop or something like that, or just a small, just a service person, it's like, I don't want to underhand them. I don't want I don't want to chintz on them, especially if they're doing good work, because I know that they need that, as much as the rest of us, a big corporation, okay, like, it's a different thing because it doesn't feel so personal to me. But when it's like a small business, they're putting their heart and soul into.
Oh yeah, that's their life.
That's
their life.
I want to pay whatever is asked without question, and even tip them if tipping is optional. Like I am happy to do that. So that's where I do frown on them. I will admit, that's if I have any kind of criticism, it's around stuff like that. But otherwise, yeah, around stinginess. But otherwise, I don't have an issue really. It's just with that kind of stuff. But yeah.
Sacrifice, you expected to follow.
Oh,
I said it.
Well, the proletarian's commandments. What happens to you if you don't follow the commandments? Whatever the proletarian wants to do with you, kill you, torture you, put you in prison. What happens if you don't do what God tells you? Well, whatever God wants to do with you, kill you, torture you, whatever God decides. God and the proletarian are the same, and they have their own priests, right? God has the Pope, who is representative on earth, and he gets to decide what happens to you. The proletarian has Lenin, and Lenin gets to interpret the will of the collective and apply it to you. There's nothing atheistic about communism. This is a thoroughly religious idea. It's just a religion that has replaced God with a collective.
Okay, so he argues that in communism, the collective supplanted God and the role of religion. So that makes
okay. So communism is it's basically an atheistic practice of Christianity or organized religion or any form of organized religion.
Mm-hmm.
Communism is an organized religion. Is that what he's basically admitting?
Basically. In his own way, yeah.
Jeez.
makes it just like
Even people who are saying that organized religion is bad and that's why they're atheists / communists, even they can't freaking say, hey, we ourselves are dogmatic.
Mm-hmm.
religion. No, they replaced religion not with the collective, but with atheism. But
Yeah.
since atheism is nothing, atheism doesn't fill the void that's now left empty that religion once filled. Only then does the collective come in to fill that void. With religion, people had a cup that was full, and then they were given atheism, which is an empty cup because it's nothing. And with an empty cup, people look to fill that cup, and then big government becomes the drink of choice. If you don't believe me, here's a map showing nations that formally and currently practice state atheism. Most countries that practice and have practiced state atheism were communist countries. The communists knew this and actually saw it play out in reality. They actively shaped scientific atheism, not the collective, but atheism to...
Wait. Is that France? Is France a communist country?
take the place of religion.
Let's scroll if you can. Zoom in. It kind of looks like it, yeah.
I'm
If you can't, no worries. But yeah, it kind of looks like
Soviets found that religious rituals and
Hold
holidays
on,
were the
hold on.
most difficult outward expression of religion to suppress. Religious holidays, but atheism to take the place of religion.
hold on. Right here. What's right next to Spain? Isn't that France?
that's France, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. So France is even is even
Macron.
macaroni.
Macron.
Soviets found that religious
Macron.
Fuck you. Fuck you, France. You were a bunch of bitches in the Allies. You guys were the biggest fucking bitches as England and America were fighting most of the shit.
Yep, that's true.
You stupid. You have no fucking say in anything. You got, and it's no wonder. Like no wonder France and freaking Canada is riddled with a bunch of pussies. Yeah, let me be the I. What, like, seriously? What the fuck did you guys do? Again, in World War II, you fuckers couldn't even defend Normandy. You stupid assholes! You needed the U.S. to come in to protect your stupid fucking asses. You pussy bitches, asses. We had to get the U.S. You had to get the U.S. to help fight the shit that was going on in France. And France was one of the allies. Good lord, you fuckers are ugh.
Bunch of pansies.
Yeah, you can't defend your own fucking country. I'm sorry, you didn't win the war. The U.S. Yes, I'm a nationalist. Shut up.
Yeah,
U.S.
if it wasn't U.S., those guys would be speaking German today.
Oh yeah. Paris and Prague, all of
They
those.
hate us. It's funny. They hate us. They blame us for, I don't know. But then they need us. It's weird.
No, you don't need us. It's like what they need. What they need is a freaking they need to see a proctologist. That's what they need to go fucking see, to see if they can get their fucking heads out of their ass.
Yeah, pretty much.
Rituals and holidays were the most difficult outward expression of religion to.
Like, you want to talk about white privilege? France is the fucking perfect example of white privilege.
Yeah.
Express. Religious holidays presented an initial dilemma because most people greatly enjoyed congregating for seasonal celebrations around religious themes. In response, the Soviets decided to create work schedules that always conflicted with religious holidays. But as work absenteeism continued on religious days, the Soviets determined that they needed to provide an alternative atheistic holidays to fulfill.
I'm trying to get this thing off the
need for celebrations. They created 6 state holidays which overlapped with major religious festivals and a multitude of rites to mark important events like weddings and funerals. Of course, the regime's adoption of numerous rituals into personal and political.
Sec here. I don't want. So it's on the 359.
Why is Big Pharma trying to patent this pepper trick for nerve pain to keep it off the internet? No more tingling. No more numbness. No.
Yaron Brook, an intellectual, author, speaker.
Pope, who is representative on earth, and he gets to decide what happens to you. The proletarian
political realm ran counter to the general anti-ritualistic orientation of most 19th century European intellectual trends like Marxism. But as the anti-religious campaigns grew, so did their belief that religion could only be destroyed through a clever replacement. The over-pageantry and solemnity surrounding communist rituals illustrate the extent to which communists embrace the pseudo-religious role of scientific atheism. Scientific atheism, the official term for the Communist Party's philosophical worldview, posited the ultimate purpose of
trust the science,
human existence, a moral code of conduct, and created a collection of atheistic rituals and ceremonies that mimicked religious ones. Soviet officials heavily promoted scientific atheism. Notice how it doesn't say that collective rituals and ceremonies mimicked religious ones. It says atheistic rituals and ceremonies mimicked religious ones. First, the doctrine of scientific atheism was itself problematic. It confusingly claimed to be a science while abandoning scientific methods altogether.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like what's going on. What is a woman?
Actual scientists avoided the topic of religion and produced no work which could verify the science of atheism. Second, scientific atheism replicated religious ceremonies, rituals, and produced a new communist sense of the sacred as an alternative to religion. This simply confused the population, many of whom mistook scientific atheism for a new religion and not an exit from religious belief altogether. So that even those few who wanted to believe in the ideals of atheistic communism simply ended up praying to the gods of Lenin and Stalin. Under communist rule, religious regulations shifted dramatically from Tsarist policies which favored the Russian Orthodox Church to policies which repressed all religious activity.
Now we have George Floyd, or at least the commies do.
As a substitute, the Soviet
He's
regime
a saint.
established an official
What's that?
He's a saint. He's their Jesus Christ, I guess. And this guy put a gun up to a pregnant head. He was a criminal. I mean,
I don't want to hear ever fucking again that God doesn't exist, because he, in a cloudless day, in a cloudless freaking day, lightning hit directly on that George Floyd mural and destroyed it.
Yeah.
So don't tell me that there ain't no God and that ain't no fucking sign.
Yeah.
atheistic replacement for religion. In this way, scientific atheism became the new religious monopoly of Russia. So Yaron argues that collectivism is just a religion that replaced religion, so it's not atheist. See? No. Scientific atheism replaced religion. They pushed atheism because it was a gateway drug to collectivism, because atheism is incapable of fulfilling that desire for a greater purpose, and so the collective eventually becomes the replacement, but only after atheism. That's why they pushed it and shaped scientific atheism to replace religion, not a collective religion. But let's continue.
It's just a religion that has replaced God with a collective, but it's the same faith-based. It's the same authority-based. It's the same idea of having a representative on earth that you owe everything to. It's the same altruism and sacrifice, one to God, one to the collective.
Again, he's referring to the Pope and Lenin, using them as similarities because both religion and the proletariat have a representative on earth who you owe everything to, like he says. But if we're going to talk Pope, let's see what the Pope actually has to say. What did the Pope at the time, Pope Pius XI, have to say about socialism and communism? The Pope writes, "If socialism, like all errors, contains some truth, it is based nevertheless on a theory of human society peculiar to itself and irreconcilable with true Christianity."
But again, I do see what he's saying. The practices are practically identical. It's just the talking points the talking points sound very, very similar. But and let's just face it, both churches and atheism do prey on the young. They love whether if it's a sexual orientation or just for funsies, if you know what I'm talking about.
Religious socialism, Christian,
which actually would, I mean, like with the Diddy trials, I think that's more on par with some communist utopian actions. And
definitely Luciferian or satanic, Masonic, whatever you want to call it, Illuminati.
Yeah.
Socialism are contradictory terms. No one can be at the same time a good Catholic and a true.
Oh, you were saying?
Which is anti-God.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Socialist. Let all remember that liberalism is the father of this socialism that is pervading morality and culture, and that Bolshevism will be its heir. Communism teaches and seeks two objectives: unrelenting class warfare and absolute extermination of private ownership. Not secretly or by hidden methods does it do this, but publicly, openly, and by employing every and all means, even the most violent. Whether considered as a doctrine or an historical fact or a movement, socialism, if it remains truly socialism, cannot be reconciled with the teachings of the Catholic Church because its concept of society itself is utterly foreign to Christian truth. Yeah, again, everything Yaron says is wrong. Christians were very much opposed to socialism and communism. They contradict you.
But which is hilarious because you now see a bunch of stupid Christian churches now implementing this shit.
So yeah.
No, there's a church right across my street that has that flag.
Okay. It's all about Jesus loves everybody, accepts everybody, and therefore, yeah, we can't discriminate, which I get some of that. Like, I don't think it's very Christ-like to reject someone because they're gay or, anything like that. But it's the whole, I don't know. I mean, I would never hold it against someone that, just through their own will as an adult, decided to transition. I'll put it that way. Like, I'm not going to hold that against you.
Oh no, no.
To
But
harass.
don't act like that shit's normal.
Yeah, but in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, I'm not saying this is fact. I'm not trying to push an agenda here. This is just my opinion. I'm just expressing an opinion, and that's all it is. So take it for what you will. You don't have to agree, but I just don't support it personally. Like, I don't understand it. I mean, I understand being gay. I understand, okay, if you're gay, you're gay. That's who you are. And
There's nothing wrong with that.
or lesbian or whatever, but or even bisexual for that matter. But but to me, I just don't. I'm a little creeped out by the trans thing. That's just weird to me. That like that's crossing a line, and I don't know why I feel that way. It doesn't mean I hold it against you. It doesn't mean that I think your rights should be taken away or that you should be put in.
Well, because it's blurring the lines. Yeah, now there's a question of what is a woman, and so if we now have this like what is a woman thing going on, then why should women have rights if basically a woman is a mythical creature, essentially at that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm not saying I'm right. You could totally think I'm wrong, and that's fine. You have a right to your opinion, and I have a right to mine. Okay, but
My opinion is that that's patriarchal, like true patriarchal. It is misogynist because it is basically saying if a man can be a woman as well, then a woman has no specialty, even though you have that part of the left saying a woman can be whatever she wants. She's a strong, independent boss babe. She can do whatever she wants to do. But then when you have that sort of that other side of the coin saying, well, men can be women as well, then then you basically water down and bastardize the meaning of being a woman. And so if men can be women as well, why? And then and if this keeps getting rampant, then they're going to say, oh, there is no difference between man and woman. So then, which is a form of population control, 1, and 2, that is atheist AF. And 3, it just totally erases the purpose of being a woman.
Yeah.
So I don't see how that's empowering when you're essentially saying the female species is useless.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I'm not against that community, but your bullshit shouldn't be mine. Just don't
and within the privacy of your own home, your own household, have at it, but don't push it on me. Don't push it on our kids. It's like,
I don't need to accept you. I don't need to accept you because I'm not asking you to accept me.
Right.
I'm not asking you.
I've been rejected a lot just for being me, like for whatever reason. It's like to tell you the truth, it would actually benefit me if I was a lesbian or if I decided to transition. I'd get all kinds of support, or if I was part of a minority group, I would get all kinds of love, from a lot of different sources and support, and probably email, but it's like, but I'm not on the right side of the spectrum. you know, that's why I won't get support. And plus, I'm the wrong color. I'll put it that way.
Well,
So I'm not going to get support, you know, simply for that reason, just because of my politics alone, won't allow me to have that, which is fine. And I'm not seeking that or looking for that. But let's just say, apart from all that, I've been rejected, you know, because of other things, you know, and I felt that, no pun intended, but sting, you know, like I felt that, I felt that in my own way. I had my own version of that. And so I do know what that is like, you know, whether it's, you know, ADHD or a learning disability or just people just not understanding who I am and just the fact that I'm different, you know, and you know, or whatever it is, you know. So, you know, I get it, you know, and it sucks being that person. It sucks feeling left out and ostracized. You know, it sucks feeling like, you know, everyone else is having their parade and you're not a part of that because you're not cool enough or you don't, you know, you just don't fit in with them. So, you know, I get it. I really do. You know, don't think I don't know what that's like. I absolutely do know what that's like. Probably more than a lot of people do, to be honest.
well,
So,
and also what's funny is that just so that way they can create their own community, it is causing isolation
right.
for others, because people have to understand that even though you're trying to be included in one group, something or someone needs to leave, and because it's you're not adding to it, you're replacing something,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And so something needs to be, canned out, and unfortunately it's uh those cervix havers, it's them birthing people. Oh, okay, that sounds like a wonderful phrase to call somebody birthing person.
How is that not an insult? You know, it's like, okay.
Didn't we have no? We don't need to say that. It's like we already have it, but it's considered as a slur. It's baby maker,
Yeah.
birthing person.
Why don't you
Oh,
just, yeah.
it's like, okay, seriously, I want to I want to say birthing person to a woman eventually, and then freaking sit, and then they be okay, but then I say baby make, and then the next sentence I call her a baby maker and she gets triggered. It's like it's the same it's the same fucking word. It's literally the same word. Good lord.
Yeah.
each other. But let's keep going and see what else he has to say.
It's the same anti-individualism. You're not an individual in religion. You're part of, God's servants. Here, you're not an individual. You're part of the proletariat. You're part of the bourgeoisie. You're part of something. There's no individuals in communism.
Okay, so he basically says that there's no individuals in Christianity, just like communism. This is actually kind of funny because someone who says this doesn't know anything about religion or Christianity. It's kind of
Religion or any spiritual practice is about it's 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 about being a better you and trying to be. It's a pursuit of completion, a pursuit of wholesomeness, not satisfaction. And in order to be wholesome, you have to live for something that goes beyond even just you. It goes beyond you. It goes beyond your bosses. It goes beyond any ritual that you go that you go to, even in Sunday school or whatever. That's what religion or any spiritual practice is. That's what it's meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
Atheism is meant to just be a naysayer thus far and just basically say, it is what it is, and you basically just be a fucking bot with no sense of direction. You have no sense of purpose. You're not working for something that's higher than you besides the government.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not working, you're not thriving spiritually. There's no unit of measurement or to discipline you to make sure that you're improving.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just, and that's the difference. And that's why and that's why you have a bunch of fucking losers embrace communism, because you don't need to be perfect. It's all about imperfection, but then at the end of the day, they cry why they're not where they want to be. Well,
Right.
it's because you're not fighting for something that's higher than you. Because you're always being gaslit by saying you're just fine where you are. Oh, you've got all the time in the world. Oh, you're perfect. You're a 10. You're wonderful. Society just sucks. Nothing's wrong with you.
Yeah.
And then you just sit on your ass and do nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Because when you have a spiritual practice, you're saying that it's the pursuit of perfection. It's the pursuit of happiness. It's a constant pursuit. You're always going after it. In the process, you're always improving. But when you have a belief system that basically says that you're already there, then that's when suffering starts.
Yeah.
Or at least misery. Yeah, I mean, like, we're all suffering even to pursue our own happiness, but at least that partial suffrage ignites this ambition to become to get there sooner, quicker, and be better. But when you say that you're already there and there's nothing left to fight for, or there is no God and there's nothing beyond you, and you're lost and you feel like there's something lacking, well, then guess what? You end up becoming a hedonist motherfucker who's gonna die of a heart attack at the age of 45. I mean, let's keep it a B.
Mm-hmm.
I have like how people who seem to be the most outraged about gun control seem to know little or nothing about guns. It's the same with atheists. Christianity is not a collective enterprise. The group cannot save you. You cannot be saved by proxy. Only you can save yourself. And the Bible talks repeatedly about the individual's relationship with God and how God loves and knows and cares about all of us individually, not as a collective whole. It's the complete opposite of communism. Atheists not knowing anything about religion isn't new. Atheist proselytizers had little or no knowledge of actual religious doctrine. In fact, a visitor.
Atheist proselytizers had little or no knowledge of actual religious doctrine. In fact, the visitor of the Soviet Union in the 1960s reported no atheist ringleader has ever dared to allow him to study the Bible, even for your purposes, spying out the enemy's territory to easily conquer it. Oh, wow. So just be ignorant. Don't know the opposition's strategy.
To the Soviet Union in the 60s.
Just be oblivious.
No atheist ringleader has ever dared to allow those under him to study the Bible, even for the purpose of spying out the enemy's territory in order to more easily conquer it. The lack of any intellectual interest in scientific atheism left the work of anti-religious propaganda to individuals who knew little about religion or science, and they displayed their ignorance through an inability to properly impart what scientific atheism meant and how to explain the world. The intellectuals who are pushing atheism get embarrassed with difficult questions, for instance, being asked, why are our youth so rough? Why have we so many neglected children? These are wounding questions in a communist society where there should be no laziness or neglect. Sometimes members of the audience point out that recent discoveries in physics are incompatible with the official materialism, or that men are able to perceive only phenomena but not the essence of things. Faced with such questions, the propagandists are completely at sea. All right, let's keep going.
And fundamentally, there's no reason. Reason is an attribute of the individuals. If there are no individuals, there's no reason. But it requires your own judgment, your own evaluation of fact. You can't have that with religion. God is the final authority, not you. and the priests who interpret God are the authority, not you. What if you disagree with God? Who's right? You can't. That's
If you disagree with God, it's fine. You can disagree with him. He's not gonna fucking put you. Gee, for fuck's sake, God is not going to fucking is not going to strike you dead and or put bad karma on you just because you fucking didn't because you didn't stay because you stayed like 10 minutes past fucking curfew, like what communists do. You have to be in your cubicle in a certain amount of time. Everything is all organized. Everything closes off. And if you fucking break one fucking rule, then that's your ass.
Mm-hmm.
The
worst happens with God is if you do things that go against God and go against what's good, you will have to deal with karmic consequences. The consequences to that are karma, but essentially you're doing it to yourself. It's not God doing it to you. It's a consequence of negative behavior and poor actions.
Yes.
Because every action equals equal or opposite reaction.
Yes. It creates it creates the same or opposite reaction. Correct. Yeah.
So that's if there is a God, if there is punishment from God, it's karma.
Yes. And that is something that's accumulated. You accumulate that kind of stuff over time, and sometimes sometimes it's instant. But with the God, because it all depends. But in this case, you do one fuck up, it's instant, and there's no. You want to know what the difference between God and the government is? There is room for redemption under God. He actually permits redemption. You fuck over your government, there is no redemption. There is no point of no return.
Mm-hmm.
You're either in prison for life or you're dead.
Yeah.
It's the whole point. You can't apply reason. And yes, they want to have their cake and eat it. So in religion, you have some reason. But no, at the end of the day, you don't. At the end of the day, what God says, however you evaluate where you get that knowledge of what God says is.
Exactly. So it depends if you're listening to some fucking crazy radical or orthodox pastor who says you either fucking abide by God or you die or you're going to live a life of hell. You say it just depends on the fucking preacher. Not all preachers preach the word of they preach the word of Christ, but they sure damn as fuck don't practice or carry themselves as a God or Christ-like figure. I'll give you that. Even a lot of old Christian practices, priests practices don't do that. That's kind of why my mom bounced.
Mm-hmm.
That goes no matter you think the earth is round. No, God says it's flat, and God has to change his mind for you to be right. And that's what happened when the Catholic Church at some point decided, no, the earth is round, and God always thought that. Yeah, right. The same within communism. You have an opinion, you matter, your views matter, science matters. Oh, the proletarian has to think of this. The proletarian has to invent this. You can't invent it. There is no such thing as reason.
Okay, so he says a couple things here. He says with religion, there's no such thing as reason. And atheists do this a lot. They try to pit reason, logic, and science against religion as opposed to each other. And one of their favorite examples is the one Yaron uses, which is the Galileo example. So the communists did this too.
Galileo.
A particular theme of the anti-religion campaign was the idea that science had disproved and was rapidly replacing religion. It works by setting up science against religion. One of the main features of St. Isaac's Leningrad Museum was a great dome to demonstrate the rotation of the earth, and a large painting showing Galileo before the Roman Inquisition. The Atheist Museum showed a statue of Galileo in chains, scholars thrown into prison or executed, all because the priests see them as redoubtable enemies. So because the Galileo example is used a lot and the whole story isn't told, I want to play a quick clip.
The myth is that here was Galileo, the great atheist scientist, making vast progress, and the ignorant church was opposing him. When the reality is Galileo was a believer when he started and when he finished. And the church weren't the first to criticize him. It was the Italian philosophers. Why? Because they bought into Aristotle's idea that the earth didn't move. Everything moved around the earth. And the church thought that the Bible said the same, so they jumped on the bandwagon. The irony is, here was Galileo who believed the Bible, and he was right and they were wrong. And it was the whole worldview of the scientific establishment and philosophical establishment, with the church hanging onto the Catholic Church hanging onto their coattails. But what it needs to be...
Even Greeks knew that the fucking Earth was round. Why did they? Who do you think Atlas was?
Seen as to what it is. Galileo was actually introducing a more biblical worldview into it. And he was right in challenging the domination of Aristotle. Now, the equivalent today is Aristotle has been replaced by materialists. It's not that...
that is true. That is true.
That they believe that the earth doesn't move anymore, but they believe there's nothing but earth in the universe, so to speak. There's nothing but material. And that is being challenged. The irony is then and now that Galileo, the believer in the Bible, was right.
Yeah, it wasn't just the church against Galileo, it was also the rest of the scientific community. But Euron also says that you can't have reason with religion, which is really stupid because we only have science.
Are you tired of feeling like your feet are constantly asleep? That burning, tingling pain keeping you from...
Because of religion.
That if you go back to the scientific revolution, to Kepler and Newton and Boyle and Galileo, these early founders of modern science were operating out of an explicitly theistic framework. Newton always gets tagged as being the author of the great mechanistic universe, but his understanding of gravity was profoundly anti-materialistic. This was the fundamental law for Newton, was gravitation. He thought it was absolutely mysterious that there would be action at a distance, that there would be a force transmitted through empty space from the Earth to the moon, for example. And in the end, he thought that gravity was only explained as an expression of God's, quote, constant spirit action. So the theistic view of reality that gave rise to modern science in the period we call the scientific revolution was incredibly fruitful.
All of the founders of modern science were theists, not atheists. But according to your own book, they are all reasonless because you can't have reason with religion. Only through theism could the field of modern science have ever been discovered, because theists believed the world was organized and irrational, constructed by a rational being, which inspired them to discover the principles by which the universe or the earth is governed. There are countless scientists, philosophers, mathematicians throughout all of the world's history. Nearly all of the major discoveries of science have been done by theists and not by atheists. So clearly, religious people have reason. But let's continue.
Communism is a religion. Fascism, if you look at the fascist ideology, particularly Nazism, it's a religion. It's a religion that replaces race instead of God and Napolitarian. It replaces it, and it's all about faith.
I can get behind what he's saying there.
Faith and following commandments. Faith, following commandments ain't atheistic. Those are religions.
They both have faith and commandments. Commandments are just rules. None of us live in anarchy. We also all have faith in things. Your own has faith the scientific laws will be the same tomorrow as they are today. He has faith that strictly material processes can create consciousness, despite that never having been seen or demonstrated anywhere on Earth, ever. But this is what your own book does. His parameters for why religion and communism are alike are extremely broad, because if he gets more specific, the entire comparison falls apart. It's like saying Ronald Reagan and FDR were the same because they were both presidents and signed bills into law. Don't bother examining them any closer than that. But this nonsense and this inability to actually make an argument was common among atheists in the Soviet Union as well. In attempting to provide an alternative to religion, scientific atheists were unable to construct any clear or resounding message. On the one hand, they hoped to demonstrate that science was opposed to religion, but their scientific proofs, like showing that God did not live in the sky, misjudged the meaning and intent of religious explanations. On the other hand, they demanded an unquestioning faith in atheism without any real evidence for atheism. The line between faith and science became blurred within the doctrine of scientific atheism, which demanded a holy reverence for non-scientific ideas masquerading as science. Okay, let's finish up here.
So just because somebody says, I don't believe in God, doesn't make them an atheist. An atheist is somebody who believes in his own capacity and in reality, in his reason and in reality.
No.
That's an atheist. But if you just replace God with something else, that doesn't make you an atheist.
Listen to how he defines
No.
atheism. Atheists believe in his own capacity and is reality oriented and in reason and reality. What is he talking about? I believe in reason and reality. I also use my reason to determine there is evidence that there is more here than merely our physical world. I've never heard anyone claim not to believe in reality or thinks the concept of reason is some sort of hoax. But again, what he says is literally the opposite of the truth. If you believe there is no God, you're an atheist. But he adds in reason and reality because it sounds a lot better than saying if you believe nothing, then you're an atheist. But this inability to explain themselves was also common among atheists even then. While atheists proclaimed that religion was based on ignorance, they repeatedly demonstrated their own incapacity to address the most basic questions from their would-be converts. Because atheism was supposed to be scientific, atheist promoters were wed to the use of science to prove atheism. This led to difficulties as actual scientists avoided the topic of religion. In the end, atheistic science became an ideology that avoided the scientific method altogether. While scientific atheists may have initially discussed evidence for atheism, they soon fell into an ideological stance which did not allow for any actual discourse. Everything Yaron Brooks says in this video is wrong. The guy's an idiot. Just know this if you see him speaking in the future, and listen to his nonsense at your own risk.
Oh, I didn't know that's what like the ultimate conservative didn't know that would be it. But yeah, I mean, like, we're not ultimate conservatives, but it does raise absolute an eyebrow, and hopefully that does help clarify you stupid idiots, not to point the finger at Jews. Okay, you stop being fucking anti-Semitic. You people are and yes, when I'm not talking about you people. When I'm talking about, like, I'm talking about people in that subculture in the community that's basically on par with the victim culture left that cries and bitches the same thing.
They have their own version of that. Yeah.
Yes, it's your stupid fucking anti-Semitic bullshit, and who that basically parrot the same talking points as these fucking atheists, as these crazy leftoids.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're here to basically clarify here. It's not what you fucking think it is. They are communists. They're atheists. All right.
Call it like, get to the source of it. That's like me blaming all Christians, because I even looked up Bill Gates, like, what's his background. I looked up a bunch of different people just to get an idea. And he's, just white European background. And he grew up, and so would it be right for me to use him as an example to blame all white Christians, for example? That would be like me doing that. It's like, does that really make sense at all?
I mean, that's been the number one target. That's been the number one target since the Obama administration.
Yeah, but we know, any thinking person knows that the two are not the same. You know, you could come from a lot of different you could have any kind of background, but who you become, you know, may or may not be defined by that. You know, you could totally choose a completely different path than where you came from.
Absolutely.
Shouldn't blame the background and say, okay, that's what made that person, unless it was a very sick society or household. Then, you know, then okay, you might have a point there, but in a lot of these cases, that's not entirely what it is, or at least there's stuff, you know, that doesn't check out completely. So yeah.
Yeah. So in the truther community, start speaking the truth, and by speaking the truth, get your fucking shit together, get your facts right, you assholes, because you are setting a dangerous fucking precedent about towards a group of people. And
it's becoming the very thing that you're criticizing in your own way. Like you have your own version of that. And I hate to say that to people, but it's like I do see that in certain sectors now. And I do frown on it. And it's too bad because, you know, I jumped on this bandwagon too. Like I loved a lot of stuff they were saying, and I still do, you know, for the most part, but there's just certain sects of it that I'm just not, that I really do frown on.
yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, exactly. But that's exactly what I'm saying here. I mean, like I hear a lot of I said it earlier. I hear a lot of the truther community playing this victim crybaby bullshit, like they are a minority, and then but then at the same time they want to say that they have Christ's blood and all that stuff, or they share a similar ancestry, and that it's like if that's the case, you know, it's just like, you know what,
That Yeshua was Jewish, right? Just so you know. Yes, he was Israeli Jew. He wasn't European Jew, but he was Jewish nevertheless.
so take your heads out of your assholes, you fucks. Go fuck yourselves. Anyone who fucking has this mentality to and the audacity to fuck on these people. I'm not saying that Jews are perfect. By no means am I saying that. By no means, but don't stop fucking putting your bullshit and saying that all the problems, it's Zionists, it's all these it's Zionists, it's the Middle East, it's all these other, you know, infiltrated people, who have adopted Jewish names, and this is that it's all Jewish. No,
Also,
it's atheist.
I just thought of something that before I forget, I just wanted to express this. Rothschild changed their name. They used to be named Bauer, 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 and they changed it to Rothschild. They claimed that Rothschild was their true family name, but they were named Bauer.
What is with an S, Rothschild or Rothschild?
Sorry, you're right. So and the other thing that I learned about them, and you could do a quick search on it, it's not even a deep dive, but they actually, you know, because if you question what their religious beliefs are, though they claim to come from Judaism, they have criticisms about Judaism, meaning that, they have reservations and criticisms. That's what is out there. That it doesn't say they hate it or love it, but they have criticisms and dislike about things regarding Judaism. So if they were really like into being, so that leads me to question that it's not even something they practice. It's not something, it's a name they stand behind. It's an image
It's
that
a
they
shield.
shield, yes. Which in Rothschilds means red shield, so that's interesting.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it's what they claim as their image, but they don't even practice it. In fact, they criticize it. They're critical of it. They do express that. And, so I'm guessing that they're atheists. And if I go a step beyond that, I would say they're Satanists. And Satanism, and I know Roseanne Barr, states this, it's the oldest religion on the planet, or one of them, or one of the oldest practices, that goes, that it stems from Babylonians. And I know that even Santos, God, what's his, there was a video, I can't verify this, but actually the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and all them come from the Orsini line, which goes back to probably the Roman line and maybe Babylon or something like that. But so in essence, it may not even be truly Hebrew.
So more like a.
Mm-hmm.
So more, it maybe not Roman, but maybe Egyptian.
Possibly, like I've never studied this that far, so I can't really comment on as someone who knows. I'm not a historian. I do want to make that clear, but I'm sure if you connect the dots enough, you would probably find that there's a mismatch there. So, just keep that in mind, when you say stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if you just don't like a certain group, you find them weird or annoying, or you just can't relate to them, I could deal with that. Like, you don't have to like everybody, honestly. There's nothing anywhere that says you have to like them. I mean, yes, you can't discriminate against someone for XYZ reasons, but do you have to like them? You actually don't have to like them, and I could deal with that if you just don't like them. I mean, but to say that they're the reason why everything is horrible for everybody is just a bit extreme, and it just seems very ignorant.
Yeah, it very much is.
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, huh?
Okay, no, go on.
I was gonna say that was a fantastic one for today. You did wonderful. You did wonderful, Celeste, and yeah, everyone subscribe, and we'll see you next time. And if you're an anti-Semite, go fuck yourself.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for your time, and God bless you.